Today's program is brought to you by Korin, a supplier of Japanese chef knives and restaurant supplies. For more information, visit korin.com.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network.
Hello, welcome to Japan Eats. I'm your host Akiko Tema, food writer and the director of the New York Japanese Culinary Academy, which promotes a deep understanding of Japanese cuisine in America. We are broadcasting live from Brooklyn, New York. This show is all about Japanese food and food culture. We see sushi at every day in the supermarket, but what is beyond sushi? We hear dashi ramen izakaya, but what exactly are they? Japanese food is still a mystery for many people, and I try to demystify it in this program with my good guests. My guest today is Shiho Tanaka, who is the head sommelier at the Tsukimi, the Michelin-starred kaiseki restaurant in East Village, Manhattan. The restaurant offers great selections of sake and wine to pair with Chef Takanori Akiyama's original kaiseki-style dishes. And recently, Japanese wines were added to the list, and Shiho is one of the most knowledgeable sommeliers about Japanese wines in the US. You may not have heard of Japanese wine, but in the last decade or so, it started to appear in the global market, and the world's biggest wine competitions, such as the IWSC International Wine and Spirit Competition, the Decanter World Wine Awards, and the International Wine Challenge, honor Japanese wines with multiple gold, silver, and bronze medals. So today, we'll discuss the challenging history of Japanese wine, why the Japanese wine industry is developing so fast in recent years, the unique grape varieties that make Japanese wine special, how to pair Japanese wine with Japanese food, as well as non-Japanese food, and much, much more. But before we start, Japan is available on the Heritage Radio Network website, as well as on the iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify as a podcast. So please go to iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, whichever you listen to, and subscribe to Japan Eats. And please write a review. We truly appreciate your feedback. Now let's start a conversation with Shiho Tanaka. Hello, Shiho. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Akiko-san. How are you?
Very good. So I've been really looking forward to having you to discuss really exciting era of Japanese wine in America.
Yeah, I am too. Yeah.
Right. And you have a lot to share with Japanese wine and your interesting background as well. So to get to know you, the first question is where you're from and what did you eat when you grew up?
Yeah, so I'm from Tochigi Prefecture, and my hometown, Utsunomiya City, is known for gyoza dumplings. So I grew up with a lot of dumpling. But also my mom and my grandma are both great cooks. So I love their onigiri rice bowl, which is very simple, but definitely my soul food. And also kenchin soup. It's basically miso soup cooked with a lot of root vegetables and also motsuni, beef intestine with vegetable. So I definitely grew up with Japanese home cooking.
And Japanese essential comfort foods.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So how did you get into the food and beverage industry?
Yeah, so although I have been working in the food industry for quite a long time, but it was not my priority until recently. So I moved to New York in 2008 to pursue my dance career, but it was very difficult to survive in New York with only a dance job, even so I was working for a professional dance company. So I always worked at some restaurants to make money. But after I joined Tsukimi 5 years ago, and as you know, we have a nice sake and wines on the list, and we offer pairings too. And I realized I didn't know anything about sake and wine. So then my manager, Karen, encouraged me to study and suggested that I take the CMS exam, which is the Court of Master Sommeliers America that provides sommelier certification. At first, I just wanted to know basic knowledge about wine, but I got so into it, and here I am. I still study, and I would love to know more.
Interesting. So, I saw your Instagram account. You have a couple, but your personal it's Shiho SHIHOTO8, and I saw you amazing dancing pictures, and
Yeah.
I didn't know I didn't know your original career, so that's very impressive. So, and is there anything in common between dancing and wine?
Yeah, so I think both dance and wine are art. Just like dance, the wines reflect countries' history and culture and also reflect producers' personality, their experiences, philosophy, and life. And throughout my dance career, to be honest, I often felt it was hard to create a dance piece that would be loved by everyone. I believe in myself and trusted what I did. And so as a choreographer, they believe in their style and philosophy. And we always put our 100% effort, passion, and heart to deliver to the audiences, but it wasn't easy to impress every audience. And I felt the same way about wine. Sometimes I drink the same wine with people, and some people really love the wine and enjoy a lot, but some people reacted differently. But I think this is a natural reaction to art in general. So then, in this sense, yes, I see the common in wine and dance.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you cannot have common denominator as wine or dancing anything because eventually people get tired of that very easy to understand taste and move away to something more unique. And some people may dislike it, but you may love it. So that diversity is the key, and I think you experience both in dancing and wine. So that's interesting. And I saw before the show, I got to know you studied psychology at the college. So one thing I noticed, maybe when you dance, you have to really kind of read air, kukyum in Japanese, about common, dancers to dance with or something that you have to sense as you move, right? So, and your style of service at your restaurant, I really thought you're always reading the air, the timing, and when to get into conversation with the guests, everything is so well fine-tuned. So I was impressed. Maybe everything's connected.
I think so. Yeah. Thank you.
Right. So, yeah, and then let's talk about Japanese wine. So, first of all, what is the history of Japanese wine?
Yeah, so from what I know, the first Japanese wine was produced in 1874 with kosher grape and wild grapes. It started with a passion project between two people. And around the same time, the Japanese government started to try to produce Japanese wine. Then they built a research center for experimenting brewing techniques, imported grapevines from abroad, and also sent some people to France to gain knowledge and winemaking technique. Then the first winery, Dainippon Yamanashi Budoshu Company, was established in 1877. So Japan actually has 150 years of winemaking history.
That's amazing. And what I heard also is that even much longer time ago, I heard in 1549, along with Christianity, the Portuguese priest, Francis Xavier, brought wine for the first time to Japan with and the samurais tasted the wine and they loved it. So, but it's not easy to reproduce European style wine because of the climate. Right? So one of the reasons, again, Japanese people couldn't make remarkable wines was the climate. So what are the characteristics of Japanese climate?
Yeah, so, well, to be honest, Japanese climate is varied and unique because, the long, narrow shape of the island spans about 3,000 kilometers from north to south. So then, for example, northern Japan, which include Hokkaido and Tohoku region, which is the northern part of the Honshu main island in Japan, has a subarctic climate with warm summers and very cold winters with heavy snow on the Sea of Japan side and in mountainous areas. But southern Japan, which including south of Kyushu and Okinawa, has a subtropical climate with hot and humid summer and mild winters. And even Eastern Japan and Western Japan have slightly different climates, especially during wintertime. Eastern Japan has cold winter with heavy snows on the Sea of Japan side and mountainous area, while Western Japan has moderate winters. But in general, except for the northern part of Japan, Hokkaido, Japan experiences high rainfall around May to June, and followed by the typhoon season. Then the Japanese rainy and typhoon season ended up overlapping with the grape growing season, which lead us to think that Japan is not suitable for growing grapes. But the Japanese unique topography helps to create the microclimates, and which makes Japan suitable to produce wines and grape growing. And because of these diverse climates, producers in Japan can choose to plant different grapes in different areas, which is very interesting.
Right. And also, out of those efforts, people came up with different vine training systems, which
Yes.
is in accordance with each ecosystem, like high pergola to
Yes.
maximize airflow to wire train
Yeah.
vertical shoot positioning. So there really are a lot of efforts, and I think it's very far experiments, trial and error. So it's
Yeah.
amazing that how far they came to realize this is a great new wine
Yeah.
industry in Japan.
Exactly.
Right. So to conquer the far less than ideal climate they've been talking about for growing vines, Japanese people developed grapes that's suitable to the Japanese terroir. So could you give us some examples of uniquely Japanese developed wine?
Yeah, so the most famous hybrid grapes that developed in Japan is Muscat Berry A. It is a black grape variety that was developed by Zenbei Kawakami in Niigata in 1927. It is a hybrid grape of American variety Berry and European variety Muscat of Hamburg. It is very resistant to humidity, cold weather, and also fungal diseases. It makes it easy to grow in Japan. And also, I explained the Japan experiences high rainfall during the growing season, and it makes it difficult to grow wine grapes in Japan. But some part of Hokkaido are actually opposite, and it is too cold for growing wine grapes. So then some grapes are developed to make it suitable for this climate. For example, Yamasachi is a black grape variety which crosses between wine grape Kiyomi and wild grape Yamabudo. This is resistant to cold weather and exclusively grown in Tokachi, Hokkaido.
Right. So the Hokkaido has been kind of quiet region for many reasons. It's used to be just outside. There's literally they called being called Gaichi. So
Yeah.
it didn't belong to Japan until quite recently. But Hokkaido, along with this global warming, it's becoming more ideal place. And people say they have the
Yeah.
best snow for skiing, and it's such a great
Right.
place. Right. Yeah, so interesting. And what about Koshu?
Yeah, so Koshu grape, as we know, which is the most famous and most planted Japanese white wine grapes, and it is indigenous to Japan. So technically, it is not developed by humans. And it is already very resistant to diseases. So it is widely grown in Japan as table grape and wine grape. But many wine producers are struggling with this grape because it is naturally low in sugar and low in acidity and lack of aroma, but it has high bitterness. However, producer find a naturally occurring mutation of the grapes in the vineyard. So now these Koshu clones can be selected to grow since they already have overcome the Koshu's negative character. So since, of course, people find and choose those clones, so in this sense, yes, still involves humans' effort, but not fully developed by humans.
Interesting. Yeah. By the way, I heard the Koshu maybe not 100% from, it's like very debatable topic where it came from. And it could be somewhere, it's like a hybrid of European grape varieties or a hybrid of European American varieties. But in that sense, like everything else, something hits Japanese land, everything becomes something else. It's like a tempura or yakiniku.
Right. Yeah, I think that, it's still not 100% sure, but some of the research showed the Koshu has 80% of vitivinifera's grape DNA. So then somehow the grapes carried from the maybe Europe or somewhere in between, then cross with wild grape at somewhere maybe near China, then came to Japan. So it is very still mysterious grape, but I'm so into it and I really want to know about Koshu more.
Right. And do you think it's Koshu is like Chardonnay, meaning Chardonnay grape really reflects the land on terroir where it's grown? Do you think it's like if you bring Koshu, say, to California, do you think it's going to taste very differently than that's growing in Japan?
I think so. Because, many of the grapes, not only Koshu or Chardonnay, many of the grape is reflect the terroir for sure. And also maybe depend on the clones choose, such as Chardonnay and Pinot Noir. They have a tons of clones, and even the same Pinot Noir, maybe it's totally different clones planted in Burgundy and Japan, and has shows some different character. So pretty much sure the Koshu in California and Japan has a different flavor profile.
Right. I haven't tasted that one, but there's one winery, the female winemaker, she grows Koshu. So I'm just curious one day I want to taste hers. So
yeah, it was very, very different. Her Koshu, the California Koshu, the Kazumi Wines Koshu, it's definitely much brighter and more acidity. I feel California sunshine in the wine.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So Koshu, it's a Koshu. That's kind of interesting potential global grape that can be grown anywhere. So, and along with unique Japanese grapes, classic European grape varieties express their flavors differently in a Japanese terroir because it's so idiosyncratic climate and geography like we talked about. So could you give us some examples of classic grapes that have been successfully grown in Japan?
Yes, I think Merlot has been successfully grown and planted for a long time in Japan, and it is the most widely planted grape among European grape varieties in Japan. And in Japan, I see Merlot as varietal wines and as a blending component, such as with Cabernet Sauvignon. But I think varietal wine is more common in general. And my impression of Japanese Merlot is that it is much lighter than Bordeaux or California in general. And I often find green pepper-like vegetable characters and pronounced oak flavors such as vanilla in Bordeaux and California Merlot. But so far, I don't find it in Japanese Merlot. And for example, Merlot from Domaine Mie Ikeno, how Merlot has delicate umami, earthy character, subtle black fruits flavor, and delicate balance of oak. And I enjoy Japanese Merlot a lot.
Interesting, because I think Japanese cuisine tend to express more of what the ingredient says to you. And I mean, like vanilla oak flavors can be added flavor, like French cuisine, cuisine of addition, and Japanese cuisine try not to touch anything that the nature gives. So it may be the style of winemaking as well, just to leave as is. And some people say the style of Japanese wine reflect Japanese winemakers' philosophies. So it relates to this question. So Japan has great traditions of making fine fermented alcoholic beverages like sake and shochu. So do you think these traditions affect Japanese winemaking?
So actually, this is a very interesting topic. And so some producers think their traditional sake making affect their winemaking, but it totally depends on the producer. So for example, Sasaichi Brewery in Yamanashi, it was established in 1919 as a sake brewery, but they also have been making wine for 70 years since 1953. And I spoke with the owner of Sasaichi Brewery, Mr. Amano, and he shared his thought with me. He said that for him, his sake making techniques does affect his winemaking. But he also mentioned that this is unique to him and his winery and may not apply to other wineries in Japan.
Interesting. Yeah, you mentioned also umami in Merlot, right?
Yes.
In the previous question. So I think umami is also, Japanese people grew up in tasting umami. It's almost like closer to the nature than maybe people growing up in a Western diet. So, and maybe that's another reason you have different flavor profile in Japanese wines. Right. So how do you describe Japanese wine's taste and flavors? And do you find any special characteristics commonly found in Japanese wine labels in general?
So, actually, there are so many different styles of wine produced in Japan. But I often find an underlining of umami profiles through Japanese wines. And also I find some flavors of Japanese ingredients in wines. For example, in Japanese white wines, I often find Japanese citrus fruits such as yuzu and sudachi rather than lemon or grapefruits. And in Japanese red wines, I often find plum, but it is more like pickled plum rather than Western plum or jam. Then the label designs for Japanese wines also varies. And so far, I don't find any specific style that I can commonly find in Japanese wine labels. Some producers use kanji on their label to highlight traditional Japanese culture, but some producers label are more Western style, some are more minimal and art forward. But in general, all the labels reflect their wine's flavor, producer's personality, and philosophy.
Right. Interesting. I mean, I personally, within my limited experience with Japanese wines, mainly with you, you served at Tsukimi, I really noticed very distinctive, smooth, silky textures. I think that's, I don't know, it's like a really refined and a clean minerality, which I think is expression of the earth. And at the same time, I kind of like people say earthy wine, and it can be different, diversely different kind of wine, but do you feel the soil expression, like, I don't know, from Muscadet to Pinot Noir to something like even Rioja? It's like really like you sense the the soil. And the Japanese
Yeah.
wine really is clearly, to me, it was noticeable to me personally. So I don't know if it's my experience is shared with other people, but it was really straight from the nature, that kind of experience I sensed.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
Right. Well, by the way, you chose those wines I tasted, so it was a great discovery. And I tasted Japanese wines maybe 10 years ago, and I was not impressed at all. So something really
Yeah.
happened, and I was very
I
impressed. So
Yeah, it is because I think first time I tried Japanese wine, it wasn't so long time ago. I think before Kobe. I think it's I tried Koshu, but it was, to be honest, for me it's also, it's just okay kind of wine. There's not so many character that I would describe or explain, or I may not try again type of wine. But now actually it's amazing, and yeah, it's definitely so many techniques and knowledge is developed, and yeah, I'm so interesting, and I'm so
right,
into it. Yeah.
right. I think you're going to be busy introducing that new charm of Japanese
Yeah.
wine to the public. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so we'll take a quick break here, and then when we come back, we'll discuss how to pair Japanese wine and non-Japanese food. So please stay
Yes.
with us.
Today's program is brought to you by Korin, a supplier of Japanese chef knives and restaurant supplies. Korin is proud of their Japanese culture and traditions, but they want you to know that their products are not just for Japanese restaurants. Their knives and tableware bring out the best qualities of food from every culture and fit into every restaurant, from French to Pan Asian to American, and that is why they are located in New York City, where people from every country in the world come to eat. Korin's Tribeca showroom is home to the most extensive collection of Japanese chef knives in the world, including Japan. Stop by to view their exquisitely designed tableware and the Welsh natural sharpening stones. They have a whole range of knife services, from repair and rust removal to reshaping and realigning. Korin is dedicated to this ideal, bringing the highest quality Japanese design to your table, so you can experience the unparalleled quality of Japanese craftsmanship in your home or restaurant. For more information, visit korin.com.
Welcome back. You're listening to Japan Eats on the Heritage Radio Network, HLN. I'm your host, Akiko Katayama, and my guest today is Shiho Tanaka, who is the head sommelier at Tsukimi, the Michelin-starred kaiseki restaurant in East Village, Manhattan. She is one of the most knowledgeable sommeliers about Japanese wines in the US. So let's talk about Tsukimi and what you offer at Tsukimi. So what is the concept of Tsukimi, and how do you offer a Japanese wine?
Yes, so tsukimi is a Japanese word for moon viewing, a tradition to gather under the full moon with seasonal food and sake as offerings to the moon. And named after this beautiful tradition, tsukimi brings a seasonal and modern experience to Japanese cuisine. So our team discussed how we can offer Japanese wines to our guests, since some of the Japanese wines we have are small production and very limited allocation. And we wanted to offer these wines to as many guests as possible. So we decided to offer these wines through a wine pairing rather than just offer them by the bottle. So this is a great opportunity to provide the experience of different Japanese wine together with our seasonal dishes to the guest.
Right. It's a great way because when something's unknown, you really want to kind of ask to taste something, and the beverage pairing is the best way to do so. So
Yeah.
right. And especially Chef Akiyama's food is such a
Yes.
good bridge between Western and traditional kaiseki, because he studied kaiseki traditionally in Japan,
Yeah.
and also he's been cooking here for a long time. So that's why he's got a Michelin.
Exactly.
Right. So could you give us some examples of your favorite food and the Japanese wine pairings that you offer at Skimmy?
Yeah, so I have two favorites, and one of my favorite pairing is our ones, which is the soup course, and with hamo, which is Japanese pie conger, and rhubarb jam on top, and paired with Koshu wine from Katsunuma Winery in Yamanashi. The dashi is made with bone of the hamo. It has pure but deep flavor of umami. And also rhubarb jam's tartness and acidity are beautifully matched with Koshu subtle acidity, umami, and gentle minerality that found in Aruga Clareza bottling from Katsunuma Winery. And another my favorite is our tempura course with tachiwo, which is a Japanese beltfish served with umami packed tensuyu with which is a sauce for tempura. And we pair with domain mie Ikeno's merlot. So how merlot has elegant umami, earthy character, and subtle sansho pepper flavor, which is Japanese pepper, by the way. It enhances both dish and wine characters. We actually very surprised by this pairing, but it worked very well, and many guests also enjoy this pairing.
Right. Well, let's talk about first the first one, the hamo soup. So, listeners who are not familiar with hamo looks like a eel, and
Yes.
it's very bony and it's very hard to remove the bones and cut it to be able to eat that fluffy, delicate meat. And
Exactly.
and the chefs really are, it's a test for the chef to how you cut it and just serve it to the guests. And of course, Chef Akema. I've known him for a long time. I'm so big fan of his. But so the hamo is seasonal, and also, this is an amazing dish because I remember the rhubarb paste on top, which is kind of American because
Exactly.
rhubarb is not Japanese traditional ingredient. So it's a bridge between the American style-minded wine, which is the Japanese wine, but your preconception of wine and the Japanese food pairings, he really cleverly put that rhubarb paste kind of jam on top of the traditional hamo. So tell us about this Katsunuma Jozo Aruga Clareza. Clareza. So you told me something crazy about this winemaker, just blending 20 vineyards. Koshu. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so the Katsunuma winery is located in Yamanashi, and they're almost like dedicate Koshu grape. And this Aruga series is only use Koshu grape is locally grown, and I think they produce Koshu sparkling and Koshu desert wine as well, which I didn't have a chance to try this yet. But so Aruga Clareza is 100% Koshu, and it's fermented in horo tank, which is maybe Japanese cement tank, and also fermented in stainless steel tank. So there is no oak influence at all. So, but they're actually very geeky because they planted Koshu vines in different soil, different terroir. Then they ended up blending 20 different Koshu vines grow in a different area to complex flavor and this unique Koshu wine.
So unless you're so committed to make the perfect wine, you don't blend 20 different grapes from different vineyards. So I really like the geekiness, almost like obsession. And that's very Japanese in a way, because something there, you have to perfect it, kind of like like a mindset of martial arts. So so Yeah, that's an amazing, good example. So you changed, pairings in accordance with the chef's tasting menu, seasonally maybe.
Yes, yeah. So we are kind of start to serve a full menu. So we are going to change some pairing as well. We can still discuss about how we're gonna offer the new wine pairing with full menu.
Right.
Yeah.
So something to look forward to.
Yes.
So what is the key to pairing food with Japanese wines? Is Japanese wine easy to pair with Japanese food like sake and shochu?
Yeah, I think Japanese wine is easy to pair with Japanese food like sake and shochu because of Japanese wine and Japanese food have a delicate flavor in general. And even Japanese red wines have low and soft tannin in general and delicate balance with oak flavor. So it is easy to pair with Japanese food without overpowering the delicate flavors of the dish. And when I decide a pairing, especially with kosher wine, I try to keep in mind the level of acidity in both wine and food because kosher has low acidity. And this is a reason why people often suggest sushi with kosher. So I would choose a dish that has lower or same level of acidity to not overpower kosher's low acidity.
Interesting. Right. And then earlier, the example of pairing food and wine is the question that's Kimi. The tachio tempura, you mentioned sansho pepper, which is kind of
Yes.
spicy, but not too spicy, but very distinctive and most a numbing sensation, right? So
Yeah.
that must be something difficult. If there's too much strong acidity or something in the wine, it
Yeah.
can totally counterpunch each other. So,
Exactly.
right. So like a milder point acidity is milder, and is there any key elements that you mentioned other than acidity
Mm,
or tannins also?
yeah, tannins for sure. And yeah, in general, maybe tannin and acidity is might be
Right.
key. Yeah.
Right. So if you think of pairing with non-Japanese food, what do you think would be perfect with Japanese wine?
So this answer is, to be honest, can be yes or no. It depends on the cuisine, to be honest. And from my experience, I went to a French restaurant in Tokyo a few years ago, and they had Japanese wines on the list. And I tried rosé sparkling wine from Tominoka and Pinot Noir from Domaine Mie Ikeno, which both from Yamanashi Prefecture. And I also tried Chardonnay from Tsuno Wine in Miyazaki. And all the wines perfectly match with the dishes. And I really enjoy the experience from the beginning to the end. But I also saw this because this French restaurant is in Japan and they had some Japanese influences. They use Japanese ingredients, so it makes it easy to pair with Japanese wine. But I see potential in Japanese wine and French cuisine. So then other cuisines, totally depend on the flavor in the food that is not overpowering the delicate flavor of Japanese wines. So I will experiment and explore for pairing non-Japanese food and Japanese wine, and I will keep you posted.
Right. Well, instantly it comes to my mind that Italian is very umami driven, like Japanese,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And depending on the region of Italy, it can be less fatty, milder, and expression of like Southern Italian cuisine. So maybe that could be an interesting one to consider,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So in August, you spent some time with one of the most well-recognized Japanese wineries called Mie Ikeno, which you mentioned a couple of times already.
Yes.
So, and I loved the winery's wine. So could you tell us about the experience at the winery?
Yes, so it was amazing experience, and it was such an honor to visit her and spend one day with her at her beautiful vineyard in Yamanashi. So I helped her with pruning, which is very important for vine growing since it directly affects how grapes grow. So I was very nervous, but I enjoy it a lot. Then when I was working closely in the vineyard, I realized each vine had a unique character. Even each grape had a different shape and color, and I thought they were very cute. And well, this might sounds very crazy, but I could hear the grape's voice, and I ended up starting to talk to them like, hi, how are you? And oh, you're so pretty, kind of, and also you are gonna be beautiful wine. And I ended up asking them like, oh, do you have enough sunshine? Are you okay? Are you comfortable? Kind of like that. But I couldn't stop doing this because every grape was so alive and I felt a lot of energy from them. And I worked very closely with vines, but also with animals and even bugs. And I felt full of life in the vineyard. And not only grapes, but animals, bugs, human, also weather, sunshine, rain, wind. We are all living in the same circle, and I think it is very, very important for grape growing. And I have been studying wine for 5 years, but I always study with a textbook, not in the vineyard. So this was an eye-opening experience for sure. And also people who I met at Domaine Mie Ikeno, they were super professional, but same time super polite and nice and sweet. And they love to work there. And Miss Ikeno also really appreciate them. And she said to me that when I think about what is terroir, I cannot think of it without these people. So this word impressed me the most. So yeah, it was amazing and most memorable time in my life. And I am so ready to go back next summer.
Right. So, the domain, the Mie Ikeno is really
Yes.
one of the most representative but smallest wineries.
Yeah.
And so, do you want to talk about how is the sole owner is domain Mie Ikeno, a woman, female winemaker, which is interesting in the Japanese wine culture too. So, do you want to talk about the winery, how it's founded and how it's operated?
So, Miss Mie Ikeno, she was in like an editing magazine company before she moved to wine industry. But she loved when she was kid. She from Nagano, so right next to Yamanashi. It's a very mountainous area and a lot of nature. So she grew up with natures a lot, and she always loved food and culture, nature and humans. So she realized that wine is it's for her to explain the things she loves. So she decided to move France, and she studied for a few years, and she also worked at some winery in Burgundy, and she came back to Japan, and she started to make her wine, I think 2007, although winery, I'm sorry, it might be wrong information, but yes, her winery, I think, started operate 2009, I think. So yeah, it's a very small team. It's only 10 people working right now for in the vineyard, also like a winery inside the winery. So they're very like family like vibes, and like at the lunchtime we ate lunch together and we had a break 1 hour together and talk about like a random stuff, and it was very like a family time. And Miss Ikeno herself, she's a very gentle and sweet person, and then I can see why her wine is also very gentle and comfort for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And then she's got grit to make it to such a challenging business, because starting running winery is really hard. And also, the traditional sake and shochu industry, it's very hard to be a woman. And that's what I heard.
Yes.
And now the wine industry is probably a new era, and it's open to everybody, including men and women. And in between. So I think it's a great thing. Not just a great tasting beverage was born in Japan, but also it's an opportunity. And so it's interesting. I wanted to mention why the Japanese wine industry is developed so fast. And so, do you want to talk about it? Why Japanese wine industry started to be like, in the matter of, you said you compared pre-COVID and now, so the speed is really ridiculously fast. Do you want to talk about the background?
Although Japanese wine just started to gain recognition recently. Actually, the wine industry in Japan already existed since 1870s, and I think there are a few factors that are affecting this development. So the first, I say in 2014, Chuo Budoshu in Yamanashi, their grape wine Cube Misawa Ake no Koshu 2013 received the Decanter World Wine Award gold medal. That was the first time ever the Japanese wine was awarded a gold medal. And this achievement helps to get attention from the world that Japan can produce fine wines. And it also encouraged the Japanese wine producer and kept them motivated to produce the wines in Japan. And from the consumer side, I was thinking, and I researched a little bit, and around the 1990s, wine became more popular in Japan. Although people were drinking wine a lot, there were not so many wineries in Japan, so the people looked only outside. And also there were very few chances to see and know the wine and wineries in Japan. So for now, actually, there are over 400 wineries in Japan. And over the past few decades, many wineries started to open to the public for tasting and tours. So some wineries invite people to harvest their grapes. So these movements help consumers to understand about wineries and wine itself, and also makes them recognize the great wine here in Japan. So I think this movement from inside and outside of Japan are helping the producers to keep motivated to create fine wines in Japan. It is leading to improvement of their techniques as well. And also interaction between producer and consumer gave great influences to both sides, and also got more attention by people. And I really hope it will continue to make the Japanese wine industry more exciting.
Right. And I'd like to add one more point. It's deregulation by the Japanese government, which started in 2003. So the goal was regional development through wine production. And under the new regulations, you can produce wine from a minimum volume of 2,000 liters down from 6,000 liters, which means that you can start a wine business with a much smaller initial investment. So as of 2003, there were about 170 wineries in Japan, and the number shot up to 468 in 2023, and which is a 175% increase in 20 years. And in 2023 survey by the government, 90% of the 294 wineries who responded were small operations, indicating that the deregulation was very successful. So it's a good push, and small business operations really is making more personal wines than big industry-driven wineries, which I think is making it more deep and interesting flavor profile throughout the wine industry in Japan. So that's exciting.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. So you are very hopeful about the future of Japanese wines in Japan and abroad. So what are your plans and dreams?
My dreams. Okay, what's my plans and dreams? So, well, I will continue to study, of course, and visit wineries to connect with Japanese wine producer. So I will take the WSET diploma course next year, and hopefully I can visit Chuo Budoshu and Domain Takahiko in Hokkaido, and of course back to Domain Mie Ikeno next summer. So that is my plan for next year. And my dream is I am very interested in working at a winery. So someday when I finally move back to Japan, I would love to work at a winery in Japan for a few years. But my ultimate goal is to open my own wine shop and wine bar in my hometown, Tochigi Prefecture. And also, if some Japanese wine producer wants to export their wine to the US, I would love to help them. And I want to be a person to connect Japanese wine to outside of the country.
Or, in addition to them, you might be growing wine yourself and making your own wine. Who knows?
Yeah, right? Yeah, I am actually, if I can do that, it would be so great. Yeah.
Right. So currently, the top prefecture winemaking, that's a number as top three is Yamanoshi, Nagano.
Yes.
That's in Honshu, and it's been famous already for grape and the fruit growing. And then Hokkaido in the north. But as the global warming continues, who knows, northern prefectures may be even more productive in terms of Japanese winemaking. So and Tochigi may be a good place to be also. So
I think already 6 winery is existing in Tochigi Prefecture alone. So I visit only one winery, but I try to visit them as much as possible.
Right. So keep me posted, and I look forward to seeing you at the Tsukimi again. So where can we find your updates online and on social media?
Yeah, so finally, I create my own wine account. It's called Budo Diaries. So please check it on me. And also please check Tsukimi account, and also please visit Tsukimi. And I'm more than happy to pour the Japanese wine and talk about it.
Yeah, that's exciting. All right, so thank you so much for joining us today, Shiho.
Thank you.
Right, so listeners, if you have any questions or comments about the show or suggestions for show topics or guests, please contact us at japaneats@heritageradionetwork.org or akikotema.com. Japan Eats is a weekly program. It's always available at heritageradionetwork.org as well as on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify as a podcast. Our engineer is Amen Spencer, and thanks for listening. I will see you next week. Japan Eats is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. Keep in touch at heritageradionetwork.org/subscribe.